Hello, I'm Jeffrey Mishlove. I'm back once again after a long trip to Dallas, and in between another trip I'll be leaving tomorrow for Chicago. But today I'm here, and I thought I would talk about the sheep-goat effect in parapsychology. This is actually one of the most consistently reported and peculiar effects in parapsychology. Well, it's not peculiar in one sense. It's not peculiar because it represents the concept that parapsychological phenomena are like other psychological phenomena. They're influenced by all sorts of psychological variables that we understand. Now, why is it peculiar? Because, well, I should define the sheep-goat effect before we get too much further. It's very simple. The sheep-goat effect was first reported in 1945 by Professor Gertrude Schmeidler, a psychologist at the City College of New York. And it's basically this: if you believe you can perform in an ESP test, chances are your scores are going to be above chance. And in those days, it was simple card guessing tests. If you believe that you just can't do ESP, or if ESP doesn't even exist, you're likely to score at chance or maybe even below chance. So in effect, it's saying that your belief system affects your ability to perform in an ESP test. Now, the bugaboo is this, and why I called it peculiar, is because the skeptics use that as an argument, to invalidate all the research. They say, because if all the good results are reported by people who believe in ESP, then it's not trustworthy. Well, that's a spurious argument from a scientific point of view, because you really have to look at the scientific controls as to whether or not it's a legitimate finding. And this is a finding that has been reported over and over and over again. There are probably 70 or 80 published studies that tend to confirm the sheep-goat effect. But there are many nuances. For example, it could be that sheep score high and goats score at chance, or it could be that sheep score at chance and goats score significantly below chance. What does that mean when someone scores significantly below chance? We call it psi-missing. And in effect, it means that at some level inside of their psyche, they are getting the correct information, but then they block it and choose something else. An interesting study I think I talked about earlier, published in a book called Executive ESP, showed that business executives whose companies were losing money scored significantly below chance on a test of precognition. So that's an example of psi-missing. And it tends to be the case that goats do score below chance, and the hardcore skeptics in particular. So we know that your attitude affects your performance. Well, that's not anything new. That's true across the board in hundreds of different kinds of phenomena. The famous American inventor and entrepreneur Henry Ford once put it very succinctly: whether you believe you can or you can't, you are correct. That's a quote from Henry Ford. So in the realm of parapsychology, there are, of course, many levels of belief. For example, I might believe that ESP exists, but have no confidence that I myself can exhibit ESP in a particular test. Or I might believe that I can't do it generally, but today I feel like really charged up. Today I know it's going to work. I mean, I'll speak for myself. For example, I don't advertise myself as a psychic. I don't really claim to have it under control all the time, although I know in the InPresence series I keep referring to the notion of telepathic transmission, and something does seem to be welling up within me in that regard. But normally I don't talk about these things. I'm a radio host, a TV host, a scholar. I don't have a shingle out as a psychic. I don't purport to be. I would never charge money for performing as a psychic. That's not me. But there was a time, I've talked about it, in 1972 when I was really concerned about the whole direction my life was going to take, when I had a certain feeling. I knew that an answer to all my agonizing and struggling over this question was going to come in a dream that evening. I've never had that experience before or after, but that day I knew it was going to happen with absolute certainty, and then it did. And sometimes I guess you could say it's just intuition. You know you can do it. Now, the psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who has written a book called Flow and writes about creativity, suggests that one of the best ways to develop your self-confidence with regard to your creative abilities and your ability to accomplish things is to take on projects that stretch you just a little bit, but that you know you can do. If you try to take on a project that is way, way beyond your experience, well, chances of failure will be higher than if you take on a project that stretches you a little, but you're confident you can do this. I think the same thing is true in ESP, but it's a little tricky because it's not as if we can give you a mechanistic recipe for how to perform in an ESP task. Some things are simpler than others, but I suppose, as my good friend Russell Targ once said, any kind of psychic functioning is like a miracle. How did that happen? We still don't really know exactly. And I say that as a parapsychologist, and what I mean to say is we don't know in the sense that it doesn't fit any of our existing well-accepted scientific models. But to be honest, there are other models to draw upon. There's esoteric lore, and not just lore, but esoteric philosophy going back to ancient times. There is a lot of knowledge that we can draw upon. There are traditions in shamanism and yoga and so on that offer a lot of guidelines, a lot of guidance as to how one can begin to accumulate experience and knowledge. And sometimes in the parapsychological domain, people have spontaneous experiences, and that gives them the confidence to know whether or not they can perform in a particular task in a particular day, that at least they have some confidence that the phenomena is real. I should say the phenomena are real. It's a plural word, that the phenomenon is real. The main point I'd like to make is that working on your attitude can make a big difference, not only in your success and if you're a subject in a parapsychology laboratory, which will probably only happen to very few of the viewers, but if you're interested in being able to apply psi in your daily life, or if you're interested in, shall we just say, manifesting, if you're interested in doing, creating, accomplishing things in the world at large, working on your attitude, your belief system is important. And to the extent that you have the ability to draw upon confidence that you can perform, I call it the X factor rather than psi. If you have the X factor working for you and you have some confidence that it can work, you're likely to do at least a little bit better. Now, how can you make really good use of this information? How can you build up your confidence to do something that is so intangible as extrasensory perception? I would say there's one simple word: practice. Give it a try. Experiment. And don't give up if you have a few failures. You know, the truth of the matter is, in almost any human endeavor, if you start out, you're going to fumble at first. I once had a business guru who put it this way. He said, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Because chances are you're going to struggle a little bit at first. Although the irony is, in the ESP realm, it's almost the opposite. We have a beginner's luck effect, the novelty, the excitement of doing something for the first time. It's actually can be quite easy. And I know of any number of cases of people, the first time they try it, they startle themselves at how well they do. So the tricky thing is the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time. That's when it becomes harder, because you've got to integrate it. And we live in a culture that doesn't give us as much support as it might for integrating it. Well, I'm going to leave you with those thoughts. I have to tell you, because I'm still traveling, the schedule for InPresence monologues is going to be a bit sporadic, but I intend to do my best to keep it going. And you may have noticed that while I haven't been putting up InPresence monologues as frequently, I have been putting up video nuggets. So I hope you enjoy those, and give some thought to what you can do to work with your own inner attitude, not just towards psi or parapsychology or what I'm now calling the X factor, but to anything worthwhile that you wish to accomplish in your life. What are the steps that you can take to build up your self-confidence? Thank you for being with me.